Give me a P.
P.
Give me an H.
H.
Give me a B.
B.
What do you say?
Hey.
Give me a P.
P.
Give me an H.
H.
Give me a B.
B.
What do you say?
Hey.
Hey, welcome to Promote Her Business, online, offline, all the time. My name is Josephine Hannon, but you can call me Jose. And I am the founder and chief Promote Her of Promote Her Business, and I'm also your host for the entire Promote Her Advantage series. Woohoo! At Promote Her Business, we believe if you want to have the ultimate promotion advantage, you need to do what others don't so you can get what others won't. That's so important. I'm going to say it again. You need to do what others don't so you can get what others won't. And one major advantage is listening to this Advantage series, especially since today we are talking about a topic that most people do not pay enough attention to, and that is their budget for marketing success. And yes, this means you need to put together a budget on paper, even if you don't like to look at your numbers. Ladies and our male allies, gaining control over your numbers is such a big deal. The reality is you can't be captain of your business and steer your ship if you don't know what direction your business is going, and your numbers are what will navigate you to success. Plus, research shows women only have 60% confidence, that's 60% confidence in their ability to look at their numbers. So the more women who step up as role models, the better. So please take that look at your marketing budget for yourself, for your business, and to be a role model to other entrepreneurs that they can do it too. Now, in the last 2 interviews on budgeting for market success, we covered working on your budget. So if you haven't created your budget yet, go back and listen to the first interview. And then we covered how to then make that budget work for you. And that was the second, more advanced interview. Today, we're focused on making this as practical as humanly possible and walking you through a real marketing budget of an entrepreneur who is in our Promote Her Business community and will be anonymous. And this really gives you an opportunity to learn from other business owners just like you, being able to see the mistakes that they're making, the best practices that they're doing, and then being able to customize your approach to your unique business and needs. So specifically, what we're going to focus on today is having you walk through a real life spend sheet. It's also giving you a formula to plug your numbers into your own revenue sheet. And yes, we are going to continue to grow your vocabulary so that you can grow your business. If you don't know what to call what you're looking at, it's very hard then to be able to articulate if you're on track or not. So we're going to continue to grow your vocabulary around your numbers and add to our promotion dictionary as we go. What you're going to learn today is so incredibly important. It's the stuff that entrepreneurs really wish they had from day one. But the reality is most people do not get extensively trained on how to create a financial and marketing budget that really works from them from the get-go. So they have to learn it the hard way over the years. And I'll tell you, between us, I've done a lot of one-on-ones, and I know so many entrepreneurs who've been in business forever and they still don't feel like they're doing it right, or they don't really know. So if you feel like that, don't feel alone. There's lots of people who are out there in the same condition. And really the best part is that you're not just going to learn from anyone today. So and you don't have to continue to try to figure out how to do a budget based on what Google can tell you. we are going to introduce you to an expert that really has her act together and has been helping businesses of all sizes take control of their numbers and really hone in on that story that your numbers are telling you. And as we go, you're going to be opening up new neural pathways in your brain, because as you continue to grow yourself and your business and get a new relationship towards numbers, you are going to be expanding your capacity. And what's really exciting is you're going to be learning from somebody who has not only coached major companies on their marketing and sales, but who's also been a CFO, a CEO, and a controller herself. She has a 40-year track record of success, and her last interview was so impressive that we're asking her back for a second encore. You are going to want to hear every single word of this interview. So I highly recommend you go to a quiet place, you grab a pen, and you get ready to take some copious notes. And what we really want to make sure you have out right now is the marketing budget walkthrough spreadsheet. Once again, that's the marketing budget walkthrough spreadsheet. It was emailed to you with this link to listen to this interview. So if you're listening to this interview and that same email is the marketing budget walkthrough Excel spreadsheet, please open up that spreadsheet right now, because this interview will make a lot more sense to you as Doreen steps us through the system. Okay? And with that, please help me welcome our featured expert for today, the Doreen Milano, CEO of Visions to Excellence. That's Visions TO Excellence. Some call her the Queen of Turnaround. Others call her the Profit Genie. I call her a great friend and a wonderful resource to women entrepreneurs everywhere. As many people in our promoter business community already know, Doreen is called the Profit Genie for a reason. She magically, or at least to other people, she seemed to magically transform a business environment that she was working in. And it was a business that was losing in excess of 7 figures, and she managed to turn it around to profitability in excess of 6 figures within 18 months. Something a multi-billion-dollar corporation said could not be done. And poof, she did it all by knowing the numbers and helping them turn that company in the right direction. So, Doreen, are you there?
Yes, I am. And thank you for that awesome introduction.
Absolutely. Well, we are just so pumped to have you back. Everyone was buzzing about your last interviews.
We're talking about numbers, and people don't like numbers. So let's get that out right from the beginning. I get it. You don't like numbers. And I'm also going to tell you that you can challenge yourself and make this a game. So let's look at it from the perspective that this is a game. It's kind of like life. Remember that game Life? Where you had a little car and you had people in it, and you spun the wheel in the middle of the game board, and you moved along the game board, and you were able to get from point A to point B. Playing with your numbers is the same game. So let's look at this from a game perspective, and maybe it won't be so intimidating.
Absolutely. So what I hear in that is a challenge to even make numbers fun and go in with a winning attitude.
Absolutely.
I love it. I love it. So in that spirit of playing to win, if you're really serious about winning in terms of your business, how important is it to separate your business finances from your personal finances and your personal checking account?
I think it's extremely important. I think when you decide you want to start a business, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go down to the city offices or the county offices, depending on where you live, and you're going to go out and get a business license. You're going to register the name of your business. And as soon as you do that, you get a document from the city or county that allows you to go to a bank and open an account in its own name, whatever the name of your business is. And from my perspective, me being, working with businesses for so long, the moment you are able to separate your personal finances from your business finances, it allows you to be recognized as a business owner. The IRS and other such agencies have a basis point at that moment to really look at your business not as money going into in and out of your personal account. I actually had a client who was audited, and they were running their business out of their personal account. And the IRS agent at that moment included all of the business income as their personal income. And at that moment, they had a real problem on their hands. And it took a CPA and several other people digging into their personal finances, trying to get everything sorted out before they were able to resolve the problem. I don't think that's a good way to start a business.
No, absolutely not. And I think you've raised a really great point, because it's not a matter of, being right or wrong or making anyone feel bad if you've been running your business out of your personal checking account, but it's just a time to really tap into that and turn it around.
Absolutely. So, the moment you start doing things in alignment with the way the tax code and the city offices and everybody else looks at a business, the more credibility you have as a business owner.
Absolutely. So, Doreen, one question that came up is, how do you figure out what kind of money to spend on marketing? And I know you said, go ahead.
That is such a great question. And people ask me that all the time. And that is one of the reasons that Joe sent you my revenue basis spreadsheet. So if we all click on that tab where it says the revenue basis, right now, you're going to see a spreadsheet with some instructions at the top and a lot of colors on the rows. Now, I'm going to read you the instructions that are under the instructions tab, but I think they'll make more sense if you're actually looking at all these colored boxes as to what you're going to do. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So to walk through this spreadsheet is automated. So you're only going to put numbers in to the areas that are colored. You will not put them in any other area, with the exception of the very bottom where it's light green, dark green, and red. Those automatically calculate, so don't touch those either. But the yellow, the green, the tan, the light green, the kind of washed out color, mustard color, and the purple, those are the areas you're going to be putting dollar figures in. Now, we're going to start with your revenue. You're going to do at least 2 years of revenue, and you're going to do it month by month. So the revenue is what you sold. So if you sold $5,000 in January, $6,000 in February, $5,000 in March, $5,000 in April, etc., you fill that all out for year one and year two. I give you a third year there because we're partially through a year. Now, you're going to take your lowest revenue month and you're going to put it in cell B28, which is kind of the sage green color. And the reason that we're using the lowest revenue month is so that you will never overspend if you use your lowest revenue month. Now, if that month was an anomaly and you make $5,000 a month every single month, or $3,000 or whatever it is that you make every single month, then that's what you're going to put in B28. So fill out your revenue numbers, which are all highlighted in yellow. The next step is to take all of your expenses month by month. So January, if your expenses were $1,500, you're going to put $1,500 in B13. And you're going to put the February number in C13 and the March number in D13. You're going to enter these as negative numbers. So it would be minus $1,500, minus $2,000, whatever your expense is for that month, and do that for the 2 years. And remember, those are minus numbers. You put a minus sign in front of them. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to insert your advertising or marketing for each month. So I include my networking in my marketing and advertising. I include my website. I include my business cards. I include events I go to. I include advertising that I pay for, whether it's on Facebook or LinkedIn, or it's an ad that I take out, pay-per-click. So I would look at whatever things you did in January 2 years ago, and that number would be going in the mint green column B14. And that would be a positive number. Now, each month you're going to put those numbers in, and row 15 will automatically calculate. Your averages will automatically calculate. Fill everything in for year 2 the same way, and row 20 will automatically calculate, and averages will automatically calculate. Now, the next thing you have to pay attention to, just to let you know, B29 and B30, those two numbers will automatically calculate once you fill the spreadsheet out. And your discretionary income will pop up in B32 automatically. The next thing we're going to talk about is your R&D. Research and development for any company is important because it tells you what's next and what you're going to do next within your market to create your product or to continue your product. So that R&D budget that you figure out that you need to be saving for, that maybe you're not going to use today, but you're going to use it in three years or 2 years, you need to be making sure you've got that in an account somewhere. Future budget needs would be things like you need to move your offices from where they currently are to a bigger facility or a smaller facility. Those are future budget needs, and you may need to be putting money aside to meet that future expense that you're going to have to make. When you put your R&D and your future budget needs in there, it will automatically give you your net discretionary income amount. Your marketing budgets will automatically populate when the spreadsheet is filled out, and they're labeled maintenance, growth 10 to 15%, and growth retail of 20+%. The growth retail of 20+% is important to have if you have a retail facility like a bricks and mortar store, or you are in a new area and you need to gain business. So just realizing that whatever those numbers populate out to be, that's where your budget's going to be. Important to note here is that if the budget that you need to create that is listed in these 3 boxes at the bottom are greater than your minimum monthly discretionary amount, then you're going to be putting money into the business to be able to make that marketing budget. Does that make sense, Joes?
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. I think if you could maybe just throw some numbers in there just so it really solidifies the concept, that would be fabulous.
As far as filling it out with revenue for the entire year? Or are you talking about
just giving us an example of, let's say you're losing so much money in
got it
net.
So let's say in cell B32 it's going to be B36. If you have a dollar figure there that, let's say it's minus $2,000, and your growth percentage that you need to invest is $1,000 a month, then that would mean that for you to be able to spend your $1,000 a month, you also need to put in $2,000 a month to make up the negative discretionary funds. So you would be actually making an investment in your business of $3,000 a month, $2,000 to make up for the negative discretionary income, and $1,000 a month to make up for the budget.
Got it. And I would highly recommend to everybody listening to go ahead and put in your numbers and then come back and listen to this interview again and just make sure you got everything, you understand what the terms mean in context of your business. And I know for me, it really helps to hear things twice, especially if you're somebody that aren't used to these terms on a daily basis.
I would say the only other thing that people need to be aware of here, and it's somewhere in the instructions, is that if you're a brand new company and you're a startup, you need to fill in your revenue numbers based on what you think you're going to be selling and what you think your expenses are going to be and what you think you're going to be paying for marketing out of that expense budget. So it's usually called a pro forma, but it's really about looking into the future and figuring out, okay, what am I going to do? Well, how much am I going to sell? Where am I going to be at? And you use those made up numbers to create your budget.
Gotcha. And on that note of projecting and having a rule of thumb in general, can you remind our audience again of what the rule of thumb is for spending on marketing versus spending on the advertising?
So whatever the marketing budget shows up in the 3 boxes at the bottom, 50% of that amount is going to be spent on marketing, and 50% is going to be spent on advertising.
Got it. And the clear differentiation is that it's advertising falls under the grand umbrella of marketing, but what makes something advertising is you actually pay to do it, and it's often used to specifically generate sales, even above brand awareness. Doreen, is there anything else you'd add to that?
I don't think so. I think it's, we've gone through so much detail in the last 2 interviews. If they go back and re-listen to those interviews with this spreadsheet in front of them, I think they may get a little deeper understanding of what we've been talking about.
Absolutely. So, Doreen, once you know what your marketing budget is, what is the next step?
I think you need to look at your spreadsheet from a high level and go to your spend sheet. And your spend sheet consists of both your current expenses as well as your projected expenses. So what happens in a spend sheet is that if everybody flips to the spend sheet right now, this particular individual spent a total of $4,249 on their website. Now, let's say today is June 1, and they have not yet made that spend, but that is the budget that they're going to be spending. So that money is not necessarily spent yet. It is the projection of what you're going to spend. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So since it's a projection of what we're going to spend, this is why we don't put the total of the spend sheet on the revenue sheet, because the money has not yet been spent. And the revenue sheet is totally based on what has happened, not what will happen.
Gotcha. So really the spend sheet and the spend tab is about a combination of both what you have spent and what you're projecting to spend. But on the revenue tab, it's only what you have already spent. Is that correct?
The revenue tab is historical with the exception of your R&D and your, what did we call it on here?
Your future. Mm-hmm.
So we called it the future needs and your R&D. Those things have yet to be spent, but everything else on your spreadsheet, on your revenue basis, is all historical. It's already happened.
Understood. So everybody who's listening, please make sure you are now on your spend sheet walkthrough tab. That is a purple tab. It's spend sheet walkthrough. And that was the one that Doreen was referencing when she talked about the projection for the website. Okay. So Doreen, what's the first thing you notice about this entrepreneur's spend sheet? And no, we're not going to tell whose business this really is.
Well, the first thing I notice here is that there's no budget. The second thing I notice is I don't know if these are annual numbers, monthly numbers, because it doesn't say whether this is for a month, a year, a day, a week. It doesn't tell me anything.
So would you recommend making sure that everything's consistent? So either you do it by month or you do it by year?
Absolutely. I mean, you need to understand when you turn this into a game, you need to know what you're looking at, and you shouldn't be guessing at what you're building. You should know from day one whether you're going to play the game based on each month, or you're going to play the game based on each quarter, or you're going to play the game based on each year.
Mm-hmm.
And you should label your documents accordingly.
Understood. So I want everybody to make a mental note in your head right now, or if you're in the spreadsheet, go ahead and write down your answer. Are you going to do yours on a monthly, or are you going to do yours on an annual? So let's make this practical as we go. So Doreen, there's lots of categories on here, and the categories are what are in bold. So that would be, for example, website, social media, branding, etc. What are your thoughts about the categories?
Well, they look pretty comprehensive, and it looks like a good model to follow. I've seen quite a few of these, and some are much more detailed, and others are a lot lighter. They're not as broad in their reach. I did make a suggestion at the very bottom. I think there's an Ask a CPA, since the IRS requires that there are rules that need to be followed. And if you don't know where something goes, you should probably talk to your CPA about it. And
okay.
For example, I'd ask their CPA about putting gas and parking under the events category, where my CPA moves it into the vehicle category. You would have to specifically ask if it's appropriate that it's in the events category. The other thing I noticed is that there is an employee category, although usually employees don't fall under the area of marketing expense. But once and again, this is a question to ask your CPA. At this point, there is no employee category on your spend sheet tab, which you can put your real marketing expenses into. But if your CPA advises you to add employees, then please feel free to do it. Overall, I think it's important to recognize that your financial statement does not look the same as your marketing spend sheet. Your financial statement has usually only one line that says marketing and advertising, and the marketing spend sheet breaks it down into all its individual categories. So you can customize it as you see fit, as long as you can eventually get it into one number at the end of the month that you're looking at on your financial statement.
So since you have so much experience working with CPAs and all sizes of companies, and you've been a controller yourself, I have to ask you this. Is there anything that makes CPAs crazy when dealing with small businesses?
Well, what I can tell you is that large corporations have a different way to look at it because the budget is in millions of dollars, not hundreds of dollars. And having complicated reports is what they live for. For the ease of the entrepreneur and their CPA, keep it simple. As a small business owner, you shouldn't need a degree in marketing and accounting to have a clean set of books, but it needs to tell the appropriate story. Have what you absolutely need to have and no more, and your CPA is the best guide for that.
Now, what can you expect from a CPA?
My recommendation is to develop your chart of accounts with your CPA. Your chart of accounts is all the categories that you want to designate within your company, and marketing advertising is only one of them. The rule of thumb would be if you have a category you spend a lot of money on, and it's not a category on your chart of accounts, it should be, so you can monitor it.
One question that came up was an entrepreneur didn't know how much her homepage video would be. If you don't know how much something costs, is it better to just leave a blank on your spend sheet, or is it better to guesstimate?
Well, personally, I would ballpark it as a placeholder, and as soon as you have a clear idea on what it costs, I would replace the ballpark or placeholder with an actual cost. But if my feeling is that when you leave it blank, it's easy to forget about it. And you never want to forget. The other thing is, if it's a video, I would recommend assuming that it will cost a minimum of $500 or more, even for a short 2-minute video. Because it's not just the cost of filming, it's also the cost of post-production, editing, keyword tagging, etc. So videos are not cheap.
And I think you raise a really good point. It's when you're budgeting, it's not just thinking it's just one simple category, but it's really looking for what are other hidden costs. And I would really have everyone write that down. What are other hidden costs that could be associated with whatever you're looking to spend in marketing? So if you don't know how much something costs, such as a homepage video, is there any rule of thumb for how much quote-unquote wiggle room you should give yourself?
Well, I look at it from a different perspective. It's just like buying a pair of shoes. You don't want your toes cramped at the end. Always give yourself at least an additional 10% to play with. I don't know about you, but when I buy a pair of shoes that are too short, they hurt.
So true. So another question that came up, now that we're done talking about shoes cramping our style. Another question, that came up under social media was, where do I make notes about expected results and tracking ROI?
I would be making those delineations as part of my page 1 business plan current quarter results. You're going to want to be on the lookout for what's expected versus what you're not, versus where you're at on a minimum of a weekly basis, if not daily, as a check-in. If you leave it for the end of a quarter, you can't make adjustments. The sooner you realize that there's a swing in the wrong direction, you can make course corrections. Mm-hmm. You don't know what you're going to celebrate if you're not looking for the win. And the reason I'm saying to stay looking at your page 1 business plan is by the time you are reviewing your spend sheet, you should already have been looking at your business plan on a weekly basis as a habit.
Now, the entrepreneur was also unsure if headshot, clothes, and trademarks go under the branding category.
I would suggest to move these under the category of Ask Your CPA.
So that sounds like a theme. If you don't know, don't just stick it under a category. Stick it under the Ask a CPA category. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, Doreen, how often should an entrepreneur look at their spend sheet, and why is it important?
Well, I think they should be comparing their spend sheet with their financial statement at the end of every month. One of the reasons to look at your spend sheet is important, especially for radio, TV, and sometimes for print advertising, as their calendars and billings do not correspond with a regular month end. They will have overruns that will fall way into your following month. So if you have not budgeted correctly, you may end up with a surprise. So let's give a couple of examples here. If you contract for a 30 to 45 day spend, you may not be billed at the end of the month exactly, but you still need to know what to anticipate so you know where your cash is. So break it down. If I spend $1,000 on a print piece to be placed on the 15th of the month, as a business owner, I would expect half to be billed at the end of the month just to make it easier on me. But that's not how billing works. It would actually be billed the whole $1,000 on the 15th or 20th of the following month, depending on the production calendar.
Absolutely. Thanks for breaking that down. That made it a lot more simple. How do you feel about including marketing education under marketing tools and technology?
I think it's important to understand from a budgeting perspective everything you're spending your money on within the marketing category, including your marketing education. This allows you to make sure you have sufficient cash flow to afford these types of expenses. Plus, I hear that Promoter Business gets pretty great marketing results and experts. What do you think?
Yes, I definitely think we get some really great experts.
But what I really like about PHB's marketing program is that it's simple for entrepreneurs to understand, and it's important.
Absolutely. And I've heard that from a lot of people in our community, that they wish they would have known this about marketing a lot earlier on so that they did know what to spend, because now they're learning from experts in all different areas of marketing and sales and business as to what's realistic. So I really appreciate the experts that we have. I appreciate you, Doreen, just for taking your time and caring so much about women entrepreneurs and helping them make the best decisions they can and win the game called their numbers and have some fun doing it. So you
Absolutely.
rock. Now, there are so many golden nuggets you gave us today. If you could only choose one action for our listeners to take, what do you think would give them the ultimate advantage?
understand what your marketing budget should be so you can make sure to fill out the revenue basis tab with your real numbers and then continually update your spend sheet tab on a monthly basis by projecting what you'll spend and then updating it on your actual spend report.
Perfect. And what I would encourage everybody to do is filling out this spend sheet, filling out your revenue basis. These are big deal actions. And so for everybody who is a member of our PHP community, that's everybody listening, you have been added to our Facebook group. So go ahead and celebrate this. Make this a win for your business. Put it out there. Say, hey, I actually did this. I filled out the revenue basis sheet. I filled out the spend sheet. I feel more confident. Congratulate each other. Let's help each other win in business. So I really appreciate that we've had Doreen with us today. Doreen, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Joe. It's been a lot of fun.
And you know what? We have been so hooked on you and your interviews that I don't think we're going to let you go yet.
Okay.
Surprise! So I know you're probably not prepared for this, but I'm just going to ask you because so many people have asked me this as a really important topic, and that is how the heck do you hire a business coach? And what should you look for in a business coach? Because obviously, there's the numbers and there's making a plan that you can not only live with, but live into as something that's realistic. And really having somebody, that second pair of eyes on your business is so important. But who do you trust, besides just going to Google or just doing something another friend does? How do you think of it on your own? How do you ask the right questions? And I was wondering, would you be open to having us interview you, since you are a business coach, you've had coaches, you know the best practices in business? Would you be open to doing an interview with us on how to hire a business coach and the real scoop on it?
Sure, I'll be happy to do that. I think there's a lot of myth that floats around the whole business coach idea, and people understanding what we're about. There's no myth to it, but I think I'd be more than happy to dispel some of those questions.
Perfect. So everybody make sure to tune in to our third Tuesday interview, which will be on June the 21st at noon Pacific. And that's when Doreen will be telling us the best practices in hiring a business coach. And do remember that all our interviews are the first and third Tuesdays of every month at noon Pacific, like clockwork. So if you miss them, you can always listen to the replay since they are all recorded. And I highly recommend that you don't only listen to them once, listen to them a couple times. Listen to them as you're doing your budget and make sure that you're having all these terms in your head so you know what you're looking at. And until then, fill out the survey immediately after this call, because speaking of winning, whenever you take just 2 minutes to fill out a survey about an interview, you have a chance to win a 60-minute Make a Difference consult. That's a consult where we solely focus for 60 minutes on what will make the biggest difference in your business. This is valued at $600. So take 2 minutes, fill out the survey, tell us what you thought of today's interview, and then look forward to an announcement on a quarterly basis as to who won, and that so could be you. So let me leave you with this. Always remember to promote your business and each other online, offline, all the time. Give me a P.
P.
Give me an H.
H.
Give me a B.
B.
What do you say?
Hey.
Give me a P.
P.
Give me an H.
H.
Give me a B.
B.
What do you say?
Hey.
Hey.